My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Watchmen. And this review will have spoilers, so that's your warning. But I've never read the graphic novel, and I watched this movie for the first time a few years ago, and I liked it. I didn't love it, but it has sat incredibly well with me, and I just rewatched it for the first time. And yeah, my love for it has only grown. I think this movie is fantastic. It would be in my top 20 comic book movies of all time. And I think it's probably Zack Snyder's best movie. Like, this movie just fully delivers. It is a very thoughtful, very ambitious, very entertaining, very stylish movie, and I love it. But let's begin talking about the performances. Malin Ackerman. Everybody tells her performance apart, but I think she does a good enough job. She sells you on everything this character is going through. Then you've got Patrick Wilson, who kind of comes across as like this geek, but he can also be a complete badass, and I think he walks that fine line between the two incredibly well. And his screams at the end of this movie are so effective. Then you've got Billy Crudup, who I think is great here as Dr. Manhattan. You can just sense in his line delivery how detached he is. But every now and again you get glimpses of humanity, and he just sells you on everything he needed to. A great performance. But the best performance in this movie goes to Jackie Hall Haley. He is exceptional here. He is captivating every second he's on screen. He's a badass. He shows lots of range. He carries this movie whenever he's on screen. He just demands your attention, and man, does he deliver. Honestly, like a top tier comic book movie performance. If it was up to me, he would have been nominated for an Oscar for this movie. Then you've got Matthew Good, who I think is good in this movie, but he also doesn't have a lot to work with, but still good. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, oh yeah, he's great here. He is really good. He just, he's a completely terrible person, but there's also one moment where he allows his emotions to shine, and I think he does them both so incredibly well. You've also got Carla Gugino, who I also thought did a really good job. So the cast, all really good work. But directing wise, this is Zack Snyder at his very best. This is when his style enhances the movie in every possible way. The movie is just so beautifully shot, the visual effects are outstanding, and it's just a visually gorgeous movie to look at. It doesn't look overly comic booky, but it also has some elements of it, and it doesn't look overly grounded, but there's some grounded visuals, and it just feels like its own thing entirely. I love this futuristic but old-fashioned style this movie has. And those opening credits I think are really great. I love the use of music throughout the entire movie. I also think this movie has a very cheeky sense of humor that I appreciated. The action is fantastic. Like, really well choreographed, and it can be brutal. There are some moments here that I just love. And I also like how this movie has lots of skeletons. I know it's just a Gavin thing, but I really do like that. But then we get to the script, and it completely works for me. This is a movie where the characters are the movie's priority. We get lots of flashbacks, and It dives deep into the characters, and we get subplots that might feel unrelated, but it just makes for a richer viewing experience when everybody feels as fleshed out as they do. Like you've got Dr. Manhattan, a guy who by mistake becomes a godlike being, and how he's now growing detached from humanity. And I really liked where his arc ended off. Then you've got Rorschach, this guy who has psychopath tendencies, and he views things in a very black or white manner, but he still has a good heart, and he will follow his convictions through to the bitter end, which he ultimately does, and I think it is a very effective and haunting death theme, like one of my favorite moments. Then you've got this guy, the comedian, Edward Blake, who is just a terrible piece of shit, and eventually grows a heart way too late in his life, which makes him a compelling character. Then you've got Dan, our knight, who's a bit of a geek and he's just stuck living in the past. Then you've got Lori, who really has little agency in her life and she's seeking some independence. And then you've also got this man, Ozymandias, who is so incredibly smart, and he feels like because of that, he's the only one willing to do what needs to be done. And every character is given so much attention and exploration, and it just allows you to understand everyone to a certain degree. I think this is a very thoughtful movie, and there is lots to chew on. I also think this movie has some real emotional moments. That scene of John and Lori talking on Mars, where he comes to discover the miracle that is her life, I think is a beautiful moment. And the ending of this movie with Rorschach's death, it hits me hard. So, you know what, let's just get to the ending, because the ending to this movie is just brilliant. It is the type of ending that will stick with you. Well, Ozymandias sets up Dr. Manhattan to make it look like he attacked the States and Russia, and because of that, the States and Russia, instead of being in a Cold War, they're now united. And everyone's holding hands and singing peace songs together, but at a cost. Millions of people died. And how this secret has to remain secret, and how Rorschach refused to go along with it. Like, it's just so interesting thematically. Is the life of millions worth the life of, like, is their sacrifice worth it to save billions? And I think Rorschach is in the right here, and that's what adds to his death. It's what makes it so tragic. It feels like he's the only one with a conscience in the end, and there might have been some good intentions, but it's just so complex, and that's what I love about this movie. I think thematically this movie is very rich. It deals with morality and power, and it's just got so much to chew on. Now, that said, I will admit that the narrative does lose focus from time to time, and I do think some characters needed a bit more exploration, mainly Ozymandias, but I still love this movie. It's 3 hours and 7 minutes long, and it flies by. It is entertaining, it is interesting, it is engaging, it is ambitious, it is thoughtful, It is filled with compelling characters. It can be emotional, it can be funny, it's got great action, it is stylish, it is beautiful to look at. It's just got it all. It's a movie that I just think is brilliant. So that's why I'm giving Watchmen an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, have you watched Watchmen? Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin out.